Hello, my name is Elizabeth Warren, and my 4 blogs are on all related topics in a series I'm calling Strong Ports Equals Strong California and Why It Matters. The target audience for my blogs are those individuals interested in, benefiting from, or otherwise affected by the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach. This is a very broad group and can include most everyone, whether it is someone looking for employment, regulators looking for information, community members, students in academia, or journalists looking for information. The format includes graphics with charts and graphs, photos, links to other sources, maps, or anything that will add value and pique the interest of the reader. The schedule will be monthly with special issues on hot topics when appropriate. My first blog is on macroeconomic indicators and is titled Regional Jobs and Employment Associated with the Ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach Keeps California's Economic Engine Running. This blog will focus on the regional jobs and employment associated with the ports of LA and Long Beach. Information on population will be used from the U.S. Census and wage information from the California Annual Employment Development Department. Statistics on the volume of growth at the ports will show a correlation between growth at the ports and population growth in California. This slide shows California's annual average wage and salary job growth from 1984 through 2016. As you can see from 2016's numbers, California has not quite recovered to pre-recession statistics. This slide shows the major occupational groups in trade and logistics in California. And transportation is the largest sector with 31.4% of the jobs, or almost 200,000 jobs in transportation. My second blog is on markets and is titled Cargo Moved via Rail is the most efficient and cost-effective way to keep California's economic engine running. This blog will focus on the railroads as a service provider to the entire port industry and will explain the key players and services provided by the rail industry. This market has 2 suppliers and is a duopoly. However, in this market, they function as a monopoly. The blog explores the homogeneity between the railroads as well as its differentiators. The blog gives a brief history of railroads in the U.S., starting with the Pacific Railway Act of 1862, which was signed by President Abraham Lincoln. This opened the door to settlement in the western U.S. Railroads were a key mode of transportation then, as they are now, and they're very efficient, with 1 ton of freight moving nearly 500 miles on 1 gallon of fuel. There are 2 Class I railroads serving the western U.S. and the ports of LA and Long Beach, the BNSF Railway and the Union Pacific. They are homogeneous in services offered and products moved, as well as their route miles, number of employees and capital spending, and their number of locomotives. Their differentiators include some geographic areas served and specific access, such as the Pacific Northwest and Mexico. Railroads play a very vital link in the complex goods movement supply chain. It may seem simple in concept that cargo moves to and from the ports to warehouses, distribution centers, where it is resorted, repackaged, and shipped to destinations all over the U.S. However, it is a very complex process, and no 2 customers' process is the same. Railroads deliver goods from the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles to all 435 congressional districts in the contiguous United States, as shown in this map. My third post is on market power, and the title for this blog is The Case for the Alameda Corridor as a Market Power. This blog describes the Alameda Corridor, its brief history, and how it came into being a market power. It'll also review the negative externalities that were eliminated by its construction. The Alameda Corridor project is a 20-mile rail corridor with a 10-mile trench built at the southern end. The project combined 4 rail branch lines from other railroads from throughout the region and consolidated them into one 2-lane or 2-rail line corridor stretching from the ports to the rail yards in downtown Los Angeles. This project eliminated 200 at-grade rail crossings and eliminated negative externalities caused by the trucks and the trains going up and down the corridor. The corridor serves 2 Class I railroads, the Union Pacific and the BNSF Railway, and it exercised its market power as a monopoly for rail transport of cargo, because it's the only way for the 2 railroads to get in and out of the ports to either import or export cargo. However, it lost its market power when shippers unexpectedly trucked their cargo around the corridor versus taking the more expensive trains. The Panama Canal expanded and diverted cargo to East and Gulf Coast ports, which are less expensive. And manufacturing centers are starting to shift west away from China, making an all-water route to the East Coast more attractive. Unfortunately, this resulted in poor financial performance because the cargo diversion resulted in lower revenues for the Alameda Corridor. So this brings us to a perfect competition versus price taker scenario. The Alameda Corridor Transportation Authority's expectation was to be in a monopolistic competition where they would be a price setter for the tolls that they would charge for the cargo to use the Alameda Corridor. Now ACTA finds itself as a price taker. They must accept the prevailing prices in the market because they lack the market share to influence the market price on their own. So raising the price to meet their debt service would result in lost volume. My 4th and final blog is on public policy and is titled How a Facilities Cap on Mobile Sources Could Lead to Unintended Consequences for California's Freight Industry. This blog identifies a specific policy or a facility cap regulation, also called an indirect source rule. And the nickname for this regulation is called a port backstop measure because it is a backstop regulation in case the ports of LA and Long Beach don't meet their voluntary goals of emissions reductions. This blog will also tie the ISR to the market failure framework and provide thorough, well-supported coverage of costs and benefits. There are 2 regulatory agencies leading the effort on the ISRs, and that's the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, and the South Coast Air Quality Management District, or AQMD. So the definition of an ISR, described by the AQMD, is a measure that seeks to reduce emissions from the indirect mobile sources associated with facilities, for example, the trucks visiting the ports or warehouses, construction equipment used in development, etc. The negative externalities associated with market failure are emissions from trucks, trains, ships, and equipment, which are sources of various pollutants. The communities nearby suffered increased risks of asthma, cancer, and other diseases. In addition to air pollution, these areas also suffer from congestion from trucks, noise, and light pollution as well. Implementing an ISR on the facilities may leave them no choice but to limit their economic activities on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. This would result in a cap on their growth if they cannot reduce emissions. Facilities may have to refuse deliveries, pickups, vendors, maintenance and operations, etc. This will also limit the employment opportunities and economic stimulus that is desperately needed in Southern California. This also sends a negative message to existing businesses and is a deterrent to attracting new investment, such as Amazon's new headquarters. This would create potential for delays in manufacturing schedules, would likely increase in vehicle miles traveled and overall emissions, and there's also the potential for perishable cargo spoilage due to delivery delays and increased demands for overnight truck parking. All of these combined would result in increased costs, less efficiency, and potentially more emissions overall. So currently, ISRs are only proposed for seaports, rail yards, warehouses, and other cargo-related facilities. However, it sets a precedent that could be applied to airports, universities, amusement parks, office buildings, or any other facility that attracts large numbers of cars or trucks. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.